my ninjas and ninjas? How you guys doing? It's Peabutnutterninja, and we're going to take some look at the patch notes, January 30th and the February 1st patch notes. They come out within 2 days of each other, and there's a lot of things that change, and the most noticeable change is Vulcan, the new god of the Smiths. I've released some gameplay with him, and there's several other streamers that also release gameplay, such as RageBot TV and Drybear, as well as a few other people. If you release gameplay about Smite and about Vulcan, please let me know down below in the comments, and maybe they can click on your name and get into your skills and your builds. So Vulcan, I won't be talking too much about him. You can check out the videos below, and you can check out the patch notes to see how much damage he actually does. And other news, we have a lot of general bug tweaks. We have clan tags that can be 5 characters. And wait, before I even get into this, this is going to be some Vulcan domination gameplay. It's going to be mainly focused around a cooldown reduction build and some tankiness, so I hope you enjoy it. And this was before the February 1st patch, so he is much weaker than he was before. And I'll be posting new gameplay about the new nerfed Vulcan, and so you can see that he's still very viable. Not as strong as he was before, but I think it's maybe a little bit overboard, but I think it's fair for now. It's hard to say. It really depends on who your teammates are, how your playstyle is, and how your enemies are. If they're just running into your cannons and dancing in front of your cannons, you're obviously going to do very well. But if you play with very smart enemies, they'll definitely take the longer route to avoid those cannons, and you're going to have to play a little bit of Tetris and try to figure out where exactly you should put those turret blocks to destroy and pummel your enemy. That's not really Tetris at all. But anyways, let's go back to the general bugs. So for the January 30th patch, so they fixed various things like clan tags. They can now be 5 characters. 4 or 5 teams can queue back into normal conquest. Before, they made it only 3 people. And there's better swapping in draft mode. This is for you tourney players and prospective tourney players. Good luck to you all. Top ranked players now only show if you play a ranked match within the last 7 days. So this is to prevent people from just sitting at the top. This means that you have to keep your skills polished, and you have to at least play 1 match every 7 days, and hopefully more than that if you want to stay at the tip top of your game. There is no rent and no purchase of gods during the draft mode. So if you accidentally did not buy all the gods, or you're looking to play a god that you don't have, that's not going to happen. So make sure you have your entire arsenal ready before. And you definitely want more than just 12 gods, because if those, let's say 11 out of your 12 gods get picked, then you're stuck with that 12th god, and maybe you'll get lucky and it's a super god that you're great with, but that's most likely not going to happen. And minion icons on the minimap in terms of turrets and, let's say, Bastet's pets will all show up on the minimap, and Arachne spiders as well. So next up, we have a lot of spectator changes with crashing. For the majority of players, this is not going to affect them, so I'm just going to skip over this. If you really want to read it, I do have the patch notes link down below, so click on that if you want to see what exactly is going on with spectator changes. So guys, now we go up into the meat of this patch change, besides the Vulcan addition. So jungle camps, they've all been changed significantly. Not changed, but they've been all buffed significantly. So the cooldown buff gave you, I believe, either 15 or 25%. I think it was a 15% cooldown or 20% cooldown. Someone write in comments below what exactly that number was. But now it gives you 20 focus on top. The damage buff now gives you a flat magical, 10 magical, and flat 5 physical damage in addition to the 10%, or it might be actually 20% you get now. I do believe it's 10%. And the speed buff now gives you an additional 10% attack speed. So all these more valuable, more useful in the game, especially with that attack speed and with the damage buffs early on. So very strong, very useful, very good. And in terms of item changes, a lot of item changes occurred in this last patch change. So all the focus items, they pretty much got removed. So there's only 3 items now that actually provide focus, and that's 1, the Boots of Celerity, that gives you 30, Fatalis, which gives you increasing focus whenever you hit an enemy up to 4 stacks, and I'll talk about it below, and Circlet of Focus, which is now a dedicated focus item, which gives you focus on every ability that you use. So let's go down the list. Bulwark of Hope is nerfed. The shield duration went down to 1 second from 2 seconds. Death toll is buffed, so it now gives 1.5 mana in addition to 5 health that it did previously. The golden bow is now buffed. The radius of the AoE is 15 feet instead of 10 feet, so it might be useful to see, and it might be interesting to see what builds come out of there. Magi's Blessing, not Magic's Blessing. Magi's Blessing is buffed, so now it absorbs a spell every 30 seconds instead of 45 seconds. Very, very strong. Very, very useful against really, really heavy Magic players like Hebo, who can shoot, or Agni, or anything. If you can absorb one spell and they have max penetration, then that might be the game changer. That might be the difference between life or death in Smite. So Vampiric Shroud is completely changed. It became what Circus of Focus was before. So Vampiric Shroud is a starter item, gives you 100 health, 10 magic power, 5 MP5, and the passive restores 10 mana and health on any kill, including minions and gods. So Warlock Sash is a buff slash change. I think it's a buff, but it's mostly a change. It gives 2 health now instead of 2 mana per stack, and I believe it goes up to 50 stacks, or is it 80? No, it's 80 stacks, so 160 extra health, and that is quite a bit. Very, very useful. It's going to be very useful on Vulcan, to be honest. Boots of the Magi changed, so the out-of-combat movement speed is completely removed, and they changed it to magic penetration to 15 as of February 1st. It was first 12, and then they buffed it to 15, so I actually really like this change. If you want to do the damage, you want the penetration, you're going to have to suffer a movement speed penalty. Warrior's Tabby is changed. Out-of-combat movement speed removed. Physical penetration is now changed to 15, and the reinforced boots now at rank 3 give you that out of combat move speed of 33% in addition to, I guess, the natural movement speed is 21%. So if you're going tanky, now you have that speed to catch up with those heavy damage dealers, so it's going to be a very interesting exchange in the case that all the tanks are kind of buffed with this change. And let's see, the Girdle of Might, so this is an ability, is buffed. It now provides additional magical and physical power by 10% on top of what it does already. I believe it's 40 magical power and I think 20 physical power, or 10 physical power. I'm not really sure, but it is a super buff, I do believe, especially in late game. Meditation buff, so after using the ability, you get that 75% mana, but after you use it, you gain 15 MP5 for 15 seconds. So that's a total of 45 extra mana. It's not a whole lot, but it might be the difference between letting a god get away or, whether you spam your skills or not. But I don't know. It's nifty. It's nifty. That's what I'm going to say. Creeping Curse buff. This is huge. Cooldown reduced from 150 seconds down to 120 seconds. But again, if the enemy has that sprint, they are immune to slows, even your Creeping Curse, so it's going to be tough to see if this is going to change the game. It's probably not. I do really like still getting sprint, even though I see that Creeping Curse coming up a few more and more in my matches. I still think sprint is king. So the Fatalis is changed, as I said before. So the item now provides focus, and it adds movement speed and focus instead of movement speed and attack speed. So max stacks are up at 4. So this is going to be one of the 3 focus dedicated items, and I think that was much needed because tanks were getting way too much focus, and there was no real trade-off in terms of tanks. Do they choose focus? Do they choose defense? In most cases, it was both. They would get both defense and focus. So with that in mind, it was fine for tanks. Tanks were loving it. But now with these changes, you're going to have to debate, if you're that Anubis, do you, get a focus item so that you can get a 2.5 second stun, or do you stick with just the magical DPS? It's a tough choice, tough call, and I'm sure that we're going to see very interesting builds. And Circulator Focus, as I said before, gives focus on ability use. So very useful for gods that rely on a lot of focus. And so guys, let's talk a little bit about the god changes here. Ares is buffed. Finally, his move speed and debuff increased to 15% from 10%. The focus contributions increased to 0.15% instead of the 0.10% it is now. Ares got nerfed hardcore in the last few patches, and I'm glad to see that he gets a little buff. I'll probably see him a little bit more in Conquest. I haven't really seen him before then. Freya gets a buff, her irradiate damage is increased, and the magical power contribution is increased. Hell is nerfed again, and believe it or not, she gets nerfed twice within these 2 patches. She gets nerfed on Jan 30th with the cooldown increased on all her abilities by 2, so it's 12 seconds at the minimum for all her abilities. And the February first nerf on Hell is her switch stance cooldown is increased to 4 seconds, and Cleanse's nerf to offer half the time of protection to CC immunity. So at max level 5, it's down to 1.3 seconds from 3 seconds, and at level 1, it's down to 0.5 seconds instead of 1 second. So you have to be on your game if you see that stun coming. That is almost ridiculous. I don't know if that was absolutely necessary, but it's a hard nerf, and especially it's coming after just 2 days of bannings and 2 days of data collection. I don't know why. I think the switch stance cooldown might be good because a lot of people are exploiting it for the double hit. If you don't know the double hit trick, all you have to do is hit switch stance as soon as you hit your first auto attack, and then you would launch a second auto attack right away immediately. But I don't know if that cleanse nerf was really necessary. I think where her strength lies is in her healing, and if you've got a lot of magic power, her healing would just allow you to win every poke war. So basically, if your teams were being really passive and just throwing one spear here and there, maybe getting a crit here and there, lucky crit, then Hell would ultimately win because she could keep her team topped up in comparison to all the other gods, while all the other gods were taking damage if they had no life leech. Let's see. Hercules got a nerf. Hercules got 2 nerfs over these days. On January 30th, he got Mitigate Wounds. His skill number 3, the cooldown was increased to 17 seconds from 12 seconds. A lot of people are complaining that Herc can heal all his life back, which is very true. But now it's going to take a lot longer. You have to really time that Mitigate Wounds very, very, very perfectly. And the February 1st Herc nerf is this Earthbreaker cooldown is up to 20 seconds from 15 seconds. This might be too much, but it makes this the longest cooldown for any ability in game. The second longest is Ymir's Freeze, and the Ymir's Freeze is pretty strong. It is a 2.25 second freeze at level 5 with no focus, and I think that's a bit too much on Ymir. A lot of people are banning Ymir in Conquest just because he's that annoying. He has the longest stun in game. If you get somehow 100 focus, he would get a 3-second stun on you. That's instant death for almost any god that's not a tank. For any god that's not a tank, it is instant death. But even for tanks, that could mean almost instant death, depending on if you have a bulwark. Then you could try to jump away, but you would probably end up dying regardless. Even if you had all tank items up the butt, it would still be a super long freeze, and usually one of your other teammates like Anubis or Anhir could get a stun on top of that, and now you're dead. You're just dead. There's no way you can get out of that after just one Ymir freeze. Pretty strong. So now let's go to the next god. Odin gets a buff, a much needed buff. His Gungnir's Might slow is increased to 25% base and up to 35% max with focus. And the Ring of Spears also gets a buff. It gives Odin protections up to 50 from 30, so very much needed, because Odin doesn't, even though he's a tank, he doesn't really have too much CC. Vamana has much more CC in terms of, he can slow you with his thing, he does damage with his Umbrella Ring, and he has that sprint, so he can chase you down if he really needs to. Odin has the slowest jump in game, so chasing you down with Odin is pretty hard. And next god is Loki, and Loki gets a fix. I guess it's kind of a nerf, but it's not really. Assassinate no longer randomly hits people outside the circle. And if you've played Loki and you try to assassinate someone, sometimes you would hit someone inside the circle, but then it would hit the person behind them. It was just very bizarre. So I don't know if it's a nerf per se. It might even be a buff, because now you can actually target the person that you really want. So we'll see how this works out. And then as of February 1st, there's a few general changes. They changed the recommended items fixed for all gods. So this means that the recommended items are supposedly better. I don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing. For the most part, the recommended items were pretty much crap for most of the gods in the game. If you went with those builds, you would almost always lose. But we'll see. I'll check the recommended tab more and more often as I continue to play matches here and there. What is this? Next is Sobek is nerfed. His passive physical bonus is removed from his passive, it was very strong. I think it gave you 15 physical power, and now Sobek is kind of weak again, but he's still very, very good in terms of the pull and his initiating ability. With his tail whip, he can keep an enemy god in his side of the camp, and if you are able to kill that enemy god without the enemy team engaging, then you usually have a 5-on-4. Then you can usually mop up the rest of the enemy team just because the Sobek initiated on one of their squishies. And so Vulcan nerf is so much for the February 1st changes, and I think he's only been out for I think 2 or 3 days now, and I can't believe he already got nerfed. So the structure protections are now all lowered by 5. It goes up. It used to be 10, 20, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, but now it goes up to 25 max. But the health percent to turrets is buffed, so now his Vulcan's health is 20% given to turrets rather than 15% before. But the protections, man, that's huge. That's going to be huge detriment to those cannons. And so Inferno Cannon damage is nerfed about 33%, 1/3 of its attacking power. But the magical contribution is up to 35% from 20%. But this doesn't even cover up for any of the lost things. You basically, I did a little bit of math, and you need 400 additional magic power from your previous build that you were doing with Vulcan to get it back to where it was before at the max level. So 400% will give you that 200 damage Inferno Cannon at level 5. I think that's where it might have been actually 205. Yep, 205 before. I think now it's about 145. So to get that extra 60 damage, you need 400 additional magical power because of the magical contribution. That is a lot of magical power, and I don't see too many magical power builds going down with Vulcan. So I don't know. I thought Vulcan was in a really good spot. Maybe he might have been a little bit strong because people weren't used to playing him, but if you play against Vulcan, the thing to do to kill him is you just destroy his turrets. You know he's going to put down turret because he positions himself. He wants to get that weird triangle cone on that entire lane, so he'll try to put that turret on the side, and then if you see him kind of turning that way, you wait for that turret to come down, then you throw your skill out, and then you destroy his turret. And even if he's on a cooldown build, he has a 10-second cooldown where he just slowly walks away. He doesn't really have any escapes or anything, so you can use that to your advantage and do a lot of massive damage to him. And maybe if you get a gank, you can kill him, but I think a lot of people just did not know how to play against Vulcan. They would rush him in his turrets, and that's how you get killed, if you rush him in your turrets, because those turrets do so much damage if you're just standing in them. But again, as soon as those turrets come down, you really want to focus them down, and then you can either push him or push the other enemies in his lane, or you can push the minions, and so on, so on, so on. But I don't know if this nerf was really needed. So his Thumper damage also got nerfed. Thumper 16. So the damage got nerfed about 5 for each level, and the magical contribution is buffed. But again, you really need at least 100 magical power from your previous build to get back that damage. The Thumper didn't do much damage anyways, so I don't think it really needed a nerf. And then lastly, they said they were going to remove bans from Normal Conquest, and I completely support this. Normal Conquest isn't really a try-hard mode. I think since they added the draft, the rank challenge modes and the draft mode, that they don't need to put bans anymore in Normal Conquest. And usually what ends up happening is, and this happened to me the first day that Vulcan came out, everyone banned Vulcan. I don't know if it was because they thought he was OP or they were just trolling, but either way, Vulcan was banned from almost nearly match, which took me a little while to get some footage. And when you did get Vulcan, or when he wasn't banned, it was a click fest because everyone wanted to play Vulcan, and it was just tough beans trying to get to play Vulcan on the first day. So I don't know. I think they should remove bans from Normal Conquest just so you can try to see what the god's actual skills and abilities are. But this video is running really long. I hope you're enjoying this Vulcan conquest, or not conquest, but Vulcan domination gameplay. And I'll be, again, posting more videos of Vulcan, and of course I'm finishing my gods and all the gods. And let me know if you want any tips or tricks with any specific gods. Each god has some little trick that you can get in high ranked, just to give yourself a little bit of advantage over other gods that play the same god as you. But as always, thank you so much for listening. If you found this informative, always leave a like, comment down below, and let me know if you have any builds or any gods that you would like to see that I haven't covered yet. And as always, peace, love, and ninja. Peabutnutterninja signing out. Peace, guys.